All right, I'll tell you two stories. One story is about me, and the other one story is about the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Rebbe of Chabad. So I'll tell the story about the Rebbe Rashab first. The story about the Rebbe Rashab is Rebbe Shalom Dovber. In short, it's called Rashab. Rebbe Shalom Ber, Shalom Dovber. So he was in, as far as I know, this is when he was in Lubavitch, the city of Lubavitch. And there were people that would come from far away to see him dance. It could be later on. He was in a city called Rostov, in the last few years when World War II started. So in World War II, they had to run away. They had to run away to the city of Rostov. In any case, wherever it was, so they made Simchas Torah. Was very, very happy. And all the Hasidim, they would drink and they would dance with tremendous fervor. And a lot of people would come from around, not Chabad Hasidim, just to participate in the happiness. And so it was, there was one man that used to walk. It was like a, I don't know, 3 hour, 4 hour, or 4 mile walk. And he would walk with his wife, and they would come to the Simchas Torah, the dancing of the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Rebbe of Chabad. They would come to the dancing. So they would walk every year. It would take them about an hour and a half to walk there. It was far away. And but they enjoyed it. Well, anyway, this man had a heart attack. He had a heart attack. He got older. He was not a young man, and he had a heart attack. And the doctors told him that he couldn't go and participate in the dancing and this. So he said, "But I don't dance. I don't dance really. I just stand there." He says, "Yeah, but the walk, it's a long walk. In order to walk there, it's a long walk, and the walk it'll be too trying for you." So he said, "Okay, how much am I allowed to? You can walk, let's say, 15 minutes at a time, and then you have to rest for 10 minutes." So okay, that's what I'll do. So they talked to people on the way, and Gentiles, whatever, on the way, and they asked him if they could put a chair in their front yard, and he would walk and he would sit. And that's what he did. He walked instead of the journey taking an hour and a half, 2 hours, however long it was, 2 hours. So it took them, let's say, 4 hours, but they made it. And they came there, and there was already dancing, and everybody was happy. And his wife went into the women's section, and he stood in the men's section. And everything was happy, and everyone was dancing. And he was standing in the corner, clapping his hands, just seeing the joy. And they figured they would stay there for, a quarter of an hour, half of an hour. That was enough to see everybody happy. It gave them a happy feeling for the whole rest of the year. Suddenly, the Rebbe points to him. And he points that he should come and dance with him. So the man makes a sign, he can't, his heart. So the Rebbe points again, so the Chassidim make it away. So he's telling the Chassidim, I can't do it. I've had a heart attack. His wife is yelling, don't do it. So they push him in, and the Rebbe takes him, and he dances with him, puts his arm on his arm, and they dance around. So they're dancing around, his wife is screaming, please no. All of a sudden, the guy grabs a hold of his heart, and he falls down, he faints on the ground. The Rebbe tells everybody to take him out. So they take him out, and they make push a couple chairs together, benches, whatever. They put him on the bench. One of the Hasidim, as the doctor comes out and checks him, he's still alive. Keep him warm, keep him still, and he's breathing, he's alive. He's got a pulse. There's nothing I can really do for him. He goes back inside, and he dances with this Hasidim. Meanwhile, his wife is there. She's wailing and crying, and the women are trying to calm him down. But after about 5-10 minutes, because there's nothing you can do for him anyway, so they all go back inside, and and his wife is just sitting there crying next to him alone. After about another 10 minutes, all of a sudden he opens up his eyes, and he sits up. He says, "What happened? Where am I?" His wife is just startled. People come running out. Is he okay? He says, "Yeah, I'm okay. I feel great. I feel really good." And he went back in and he started dancing. The Rebbe cured him with joy. Right. So against the doctor's orders, the Rebbe had a different, was pulling from a different source. Story number one. Story number two. This happened to me 10 years ago. I don't know, time flies. So every, I was by the Rebbe for Sukkot, and in Sukkot you take a lulav etrog. You know what a lulav etrog is? You know, it's long middle branch of a central branch of a palm tree. You take and you hold it, you put a etrog, which is a nice fruit, and two other types of foliage, and it's a commandment to shake it. But in Chabad, they also go into the streets, and they ask people if they're Jewish, and they go to the streets of Manhattan, and they ask people if they're Jewish or if they're not Jewish. And if they are Jewish, they do a commandment, just shake this. And a surprising number of Jews do it. I remember one year I went, it wasn't Manhattan, I don't know where it was. I got off, I just go on the subway and I just get off somewhere. So I got off, and there's this sort of, like a sort of a business area. And there came this fellow, he was well dressed, he was pushing a carriage. This is not the story I wanted to tell you. And he was pushing a carriage, and he was a well-dressed guy. I said, "Are you Jewish?" And he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, I'm Jewish." So I said, "Here, do a commandment." I said, "What is that? What is it?" He said, "It's the holiday of Sukkot today." I said, "Yeah, I heard that there's a holiday today. What is this holiday? What is this?" So I said, "You sure you're Jewish?" "Yeah, I'm Jewish. My mother is Jewish. I had a bar mitzvah. I have a bris. I have it." So I said, "It's a holiday. We dance. We take a lulav and etro." I said, "Here, listen. Just do the commandment. It'll take you 3 seconds, and how long will it take?" So I have my standard joke that I tell. I say, "It'll take you 10 seconds unless you resist. If you resist, it'll take about a minute." Anyways, he laughed. So I put a kippah on his head. So what I say, said a blessing. He said a blessing. He knew how to say a blessing. He didn't know how to end, but he did. Baruch atah Hashem. And he took the lulav and etrog and he shook it. I said, "That's it. You did a commandment." And he gave me back and he said, "You know what?" He said, "That really made me happy." He said, "That made me happy." And I remember the look on his face. He was, some sort of a businessman. He looked like, maybe the most he was, in his 30s. And he looked like, he could even be a professor. Who knows what he was? But I mean, for certain, he was an intellectual type of a person, but a Jew. And he said, "That made me happy." That doesn't make any sense. I said, "That's the purpose of the Torah." But it doesn't make any sense. Our life doesn't make any sense. We're being created by God, but it's true. And when you feel the truth, it makes you happy. He said, "I don't understand anything of that, but I know that made me feel good." He said, and he took down a number. I gave him one of the cards. I said he'd been in touch with 770. Who knows what came out of it? Okay, next story. This is the story I wanted to tell. So now you got 3 stories. So I took my lulav and etrog one year, and I went into, I think I told you the story before, but maybe I even recorded it. I don't even remember. So I took my lulav and etrog, and I went into Manhattan, and I got off at the stop, and it ends up that there's a big Chabad sukkah that's built over there. So the Chabad fellows, they're at the entrance of the sukkah, but I went to the back of the sukkah. There's no entrance to the back of the sukkah. And it so happens that the back of the sukkah is facing the stairs coming out from the subway. So once every quarter of an hour, 10 minutes, whatever, there comes a whole flood of people come out up these stairs. So I'm just standing there, religious guy with a beard. I have a long coat with this lulav and etrog, and asking people if they're Jewish. Once in a while, somebody says yes, and also people say okay, they do lulav and etrog. A bunch of what are they called? They were called the punkists, whatever they are. They came out of the thing. So maybe even it was more than 10 years ago. Anyway, so there was about 15 of them, 20 of them, and they all had their hair was like dyed blue and green, and most of them had like these mohawk haircuts. It was all shaved over here, and they had these weird tattoos on their face, and then they had piercings all over the place. And so they came over to me and they said, "What is that?" I mean, these people, they have one thing in common, is that they're bored. So they all came over to me and they said, "What is that?" I mean, so they saw somebody interesting. What is it? So I said, "Oh, this is a holiday, Jewish holiday." Really, what holiday is? I said, "Any of you Jewish?" No, they're not Jewish. They're not Jewish. So I said, "It's a Jewish holiday, and these are 4 types of foliage. We can't." And one of them says, "Oh, organic. It's an organic holiday." And I said, but the main thing is the sukkah that we're saying. This symbolizes the clouds that God surrounded the Jewish people with when they left Egypt. So I saw they're already getting sort of, they were getting ready to go. They had like an attention span of like 3 minutes or something, unless they're watching. Anyway, that's unless something really interests them, then they're out. So I said, and what this means to us is that if a person wants to do something good, anybody, like the Jews left Egypt, then God surrounds you and helps you. And suddenly I said these words. They were all sort of, fidgeting around. I saw one said, nudge the other one, let's go. I said, or in other words, no one is ever alone. God is always, as soon as I said those words, no one is ever alone. No one is ever alone. 4 words. As soon as I said that, all of a sudden, all of them, they became strangely sort of still and quiet. And all of them, like their eyes went up like this, to the right. So, it was really bizarre. All of them went up. And the biggest one of them, the man, one of the big, he said, that's a good message. That's a really good message. And he shook my hand, and immediately I understood what was going on. And I said, I don't shake hands with women, right? I don't shake hands with women. That's a part of our religion. Don't shake hands, but I'll shake hands with all the men twice. Ha ha ha, they'll laugh. And I shook their hand, and that's it. And they left. Suddenly I realized that it's really true that people feel alone. And that when they feel that God is with you, no matter where you are, and he's creating you, not just creating you, but that's sort of impersonal, that he cares about you and that he's embracing you and that he's helping you. God, everybody. Sometimes you got to get a little bit desperate to realize this, but not necessarily. These people were not desperate. They were just alone. And they were all together. They were all, there's a group of all of them together. But even being together, they were alone. That's why they did all the piercings, and they just do something to occupy themselves. Maybe they won't feel so alone anymore. And the holiday of Sukkot is to tell us that no one is ever alone. God is embracing us and that he cares about us. And that's a very happy thought. Have a good holiday with Mashiach now. God willing, I'll try to send messages every day by YouTube. And I'm taking my computer with me. Yes, okay, so I'll sound the shofar, even though you're not going to get a good sound of what the shofar is. So I'm going to turn this off. Here we go. Turn this off because it's misleading.